Hey everybody, it's Sean here with Welcome to Powersports. Today we're going to be going over checking the belt and the clutches on your RZR. We've got here our 2021 RZR 1000 XP. This is going to be similar on most of your RZR models. Let's get into it. So we're going to start by unhooking our clutch ducting here. As you can see, this is a pipe that runs directly into our secondary clutch. It's just going to be in the way for getting our clutch cover and things off. So we're going to start just by removing that. You've got a clamp at the top and a clamp at the bottom. And these are typically an 8mm fastener. As well as all your clutch cover bolts are also going to be the same 8mm socket. And just pull it down, slide it off the side. You can set that right aside, get it out of your way. So now we've got our coarse threaded bolts. These just go directly into a plastic shield on the back of this cover. That's going to be a little different on your turbo models, but all of your XP 1000s and trails and units along those lines utilize this plastic rear cover. Now that we've got all these fasteners out of the way, the cover should just pop right off of there. And as you can see, it's a tight fit coming out through here. But if you spin it and wiggle it, it'll come out. So inside here, you've got your drive and driven clutch. The drive clutch hooks directly to your engine crankshaft. The driven clutch hooks directly into your transmission input shaft. So yeah, let's pull the belt and let's check that over and look at our clutches. Does this have a toolkit in it? Just so I don't have to wedge my pry bar. So included in your factory toolkit, you'll get this shock tool, which also has a clutch end on the other side. This side's for your clutches, or this side's for your shocks, this side's for your clutch. And you're just gonna take this open end, wedge it in here, and then you're just gonna pivot it around to open up the secondary. And as you open this, you'll notice the belt sinks and gets slack. Once you get some slack in the belt, you can take and just grab a hold of it and roll it right around. Pop your drive belt off here. So what you're going to want to be looking for when you're checking your belt over is any spots that look potentially thinner or hot, shiny. I've actually got a small mark right here on this belt. But there's no hourglassing or misshaping. So our drive belt's looking pretty good. There are some hot spots in it, but nothing terrible. So we'll take this and we'll set it aside. So what we're going to be looking for is any variation in our clutch faces. If you do a lot of operation at the same RPM or low speed, high load, or anything like that, you can actually have some wear start to form inside these clutch sheaves, and you really don't want to feel any variation. You want it to be a nice consistent taper all the way to the bottom from the top. Any grooves in this primary clutch are going to cause strange belt operation. It's not going to transfer smoothly through the clutches the way it should, and you're going to be potentially generating more heat, excess RPM, things like that, because the clutches won't be shifting properly. The belt's going to drag, cause some issues. And you're going to look for a similar thing in your secondary. Secondary wear isn't as common. Normally what you see on the secondary is pitting or small indentations forming from just a lot of use, a lot of runtime, high heat sort of situations. We've got nothing like that going on in these. And then while you're here in the clutches, you're going to want to check these wear pucks on the secondary. Make sure that they're mobile still. As well as them being mobile, you don't want to see any excess wear, so you've got a lot of play between the two faces. A little bit of movement's fine. That's what you're actually looking for, is just a little bit of movement. Make sure they're going to slide and nothing's hanging up. These are a high density composite material, and they're made to wear over time. So Polaris gave you the square ones so you can flip them and get a little extra life out of them. And then on your primary, we're going to want to be looking at these clutch buttons, these two little composite pucks, and these are just here to take up the slack between the spider and the clutch sheave itself, the mobile sheave. As well as looking at that, you're going to want to check your clutch weights. Ow, don't run your fingers over. I'm just going to grab a little bar here to hold this open and make it a little easier to demonstrate what we're looking at. So you're going to want to be looking at the faces on these weights and make sure that they're smooth. You can't really see it from here, but if you feel them, there's no wave or anything in there. And a wave in the clutch weights is going to prevent them from shifting properly. As well, there's some rollers on the inside of the spider that you're going to want to check to make sure they're still mobile and not flat spotted. These ones all roll. And there's no flat spotting indicating that they haven't been working correctly or that anything is seized up. Make sure all your shift weights move. And yeah, everything's looking really good in our primary and our secondary so far. We aren't going to open anything up because we're not having any issues with this unit as far as the clutching goes. But yeah, we'll work on reinstallation. You want to make sure that you can read the Polaris or the part number, depending on which drive belt you have. Almost all of your drive belts have a part number printed on the outside of them like this. And you want that set up so you can read it conventionally left to right. All that does is make sure that the belt is installed and removed in the same direction, same fashion every time. That way, if you are reusing a belt for later trail use, it's installed in the same direction and isn't experiencing force in a different way than it was originally. And as you roll this around, it'll get a little tighter on you. So you want to reposition your tool so your belt sinks a little lower into the clutches and just expands just a little bit more. And then you'll notice our belt's still sitting pretty low. What you can do here is just spin your secondary. And as long as you're in park or neutral, this will spin freely. If you're in A gear, high, low, reverse, any of those, it will not spin because you're directly connected to the tires at that point. As you can see here, we've got a nice consistent belt seating on the secondary, which is going to indicate that the belt is all the way to its highest point, and that's where you're going to want to be starting off. If you leave the belt partially sunk in the secondary clutch, when you take off, you're more likely to cause slippage or have other issues, just because this belt isn't going to be properly tensioned and you're going to be trying to start off in a higher gear than original first. True lowest gear. Another good thing to check while you're in here is actually this seal around the outside of the clutch cover. Make sure there's no tears, anything like that. A tear in this seal will allow water into the system, and water is the enemy of clutches. So we'll take this cover, slide it back in, and then I typically start by just installing loosely a couple of these top bolts to keep it from falling out at me. Keep it all in place while I'm reinstalling the rest of the hardware. And we just run these in until they're snug. Be sure to not over tighten these bolts. As it is just going into plastic, you will strip out the back cover. Then I just like to go through and check them all by hand. All right, then you just slide your tube back on here. I like to start down by the clutch cover itself. Doesn't make a difference though. Then as before, just check all your hardware by hand, make sure everything is tight. So that's how we check our clutches and our belt on our RZR 1000 XP. It's going to be similar on most of your RZR models. The trails are going to contain the belt on the same side. The clutch cover is a little different from model to model, so you might have some small changes there, but most clutches are going to be done in that fashion. All the tools you would need to do that are included in your factory toolkit. So I also always recommend carrying a spare belt in your unit just in case you do have a breakdown on the side of the trail. Water, like I said, can really cause a lot of clutch slippage issues. That's going to be the primary concern when you're out trailing with your RZR or Ranger or anything in the lineup. Yeah, water is the enemy. Make sure you carry a spare belt just as a chance to get yourself back out of the woods if you do have an issue.